Hi everyone, this is Ramalinga Prasad Kuppa. Welcome to my channel Pharma World. Today's topic is handling of materials in pharmaceutical manufacturing. Handling of materials at various stages of pharmaceutical manufacturing is critical. Unless the materials are handled as per the characteristics of the material's quality and stability during the handling of the pharmaceutical manufacturing is questionable. Section 7.4 of ICH Q7, 21 CFR Part 211.80 and 142. Section 7.4 of ICH Q7 has adequate information on the requirements. 21 CFR Part 211.80 also has similar information. 21 CFR 211.142 is related to the storage and handling of finished product. Let us see more. Section 7.40 prescribes materials should be handled and stored in a manner to prevent degradation, contamination and cross-contamination. There are few words highlighted here. Let us understand the exact intent of these words. Handling of materials means how they are received from the vendor, sampled, dispensed and transported to the production floor, etc. at various stages of manufacture. Stored means, depending upon the characteristics of the material, how they are packaged and stored carefully to avoid any deterioration. Of course, in general also, conditions for storage of ice creams are different from storage of crispy crackjack biscuit packets. Some materials may be temperature sensitive. Such materials have to be stored at lower temperatures suitable for its properties. Few examples of storage conditions include store at 25 degrees Celsius or 5 degrees Celsius or freezer temperatures, etc. Certain materials are sensitive to higher relative humidity conditions. Some materials may be light sensitive. So it is important to understand that the materials have to be stored at appropriate conditions as required. Intent of such conditions is to avoid degradation of the materials. Materials may be segregated to avoid contamination or cross-contamination from each other. Contamination means within the same material of different batches. Cross-contamination means contamination with another material. This is a general terminology used. Use appropriate protective personal equipment like gloves, nose masks to handle the materials to prevent degradation, contamination and cross-contamination. Depending upon the toxicity levels, necessary personal protective equipments like gloves, face masks, respirators, etc. should be used while handling materials. This is required to protect the personnel also from any potential risk of exposure to the material. Use appropriate storage conditions for materials as required by the characteristics of the compound. As explained above, the storage should be done as per the requirements to ensure the integrity of the product. Temperature sensitive materials have to be stored at appropriate lower temperatures. Similarly, temperature sensitive materials should be stored accordingly. This is how section 7.40 should be understood. Storage conditions may be classified as store in tight containers means the containers have to be tied firmly and stored at uncontrolled ambient temperatures. These are general storage conditions. Such materials are not sensitive to variations in storage temperature or humidity conditions. Store in controlled room temperatures below 25 degrees Celsius. That means the containers have to be tied firmly and stored at control room temperature at 25 degrees Celsius plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius. So this kind of materials should be stored at 25 degrees Celsius. Store in control room temperature below 5 degrees Celsius. That means the containers have to be tied firmly and stored at control room temperatures at 5 degrees Celsius plus or minus 3 degrees Celsius. Similarly, some materials may have to be stored at 5 degrees. There are other freezer storage conditions also, but they are not referred here. Section 7.41 prescribes materials stored in fiber drums, bags or boxes should be stored off the floor and when appropriate suitably spaced to permit cleaning and inspection. This section talks about proper storage. Obviously, when the materials are handled in fiberboard containers and if there is accidental seepage of water underneath the containers could get wet and degrade the material inside. That is why such containers should be protected from such accidents, hence it should be stored off the floor. Off the floor means store such material containers on racks or pallets. This is to avoid accidental contamination when there is a spillage or water seepage. Adequate space has to be provided for easy cleaning and inspection. There should be adequate space around the pallet on which the materials are stored. This is for easy cleaning routinely for good housekeeping. Inspection means checking the physical status of the containers. You have to check for any physical damages as a part of inspection. Section 7.42 prescribes materials should be stored under conditions for a period that have no adverse effect on their quality and should normally be controlled so that the oldest stock is used first. If the materials are stored as per section 7.40 and 7.41, the materials will not have adverse effect on their quality. There should be a system on usage pattern of the materials. Let us see. Use the materials within validity period. That means the materials have to be used within expiry or retest period. So the first requirement is that the materials should be used within the validity period. That means they should be used in the manufacturing within the expiry or retest period. First in first out, FIFO, or first expiry first out, FEFO system has to be followed for dispensing. This is to address usage of the oldest stock used first. Either of these two methods may be used. Basically, in both the systems, the expiry period is considered critical for dispensing for manufacturing. Section 7.43 prescribes certain materials in suitable containers can be stored outdoors provided identifying labels remain legible and containers are appropriately cleaned before opening and use. If the containers are exposed to open atmosphere, labels may be peeled off or faded out. Care should be taken to see that the labels are protected by a waxy transparent tape over it to avoid fading. Sometimes metal tags may be fastened for such outdoor stored drums. They will not peel off or fall off. Since the containers are stored outside, there is a possibility to collect lot of fine dust over it. Your SOP on handling and dispensing should have a provision to clean the drums before being opened and dispensed. Materials received in drums, tanks may be stored outdoors. Generally, high boiling solvents or highly stable materials are received in 200-liter strong mild steel drums or tanks in huge quantities. They can be stored outdoors provided that the material inside is protected from any degradation. Since they are exposed to uncontrolled atmosphere, there is a potential that the labels may be peeled off or faded. So it is important that the labels are protected to ensure the identity of the materials. Also, since the materials are stored outdoors, it may accumulate dust over them. So it is necessary to clean the drums before being opened for dispensing. So these 2 points are to understand the intent of section 7.43. Section 7.44 prescribes rejected materials should be identified and controlled under a quarantine system designated to prevent their unauthorized use in the manufacturing. This section is important. Handling of rejected materials, inferior quality materials. So, accidental usage in manufacturing should be avoided. There should be a detailed system to handle such failed materials. Let us see what kind of systems are recommended. It has to be identified unambiguously, clearly with a prominent red colored rejected label. Red color is an indication for a total stop sign. So all such rejected materials should be clearly identified with a red sticker to indicate not to use that material in the manufacturing. It is important that the rejected material be handled under lock and key system to avoid unauthorized use in the manufacturing. Additionally, if the access is restricted, its usage may not be possible. So a lock and key system to prevent usage should be made. The control should be with the quality units or other suitable independent section. The lock and key system should be under authorized persons for further disposal activity. For salvaging the rejected materials, authorized personnel should be designated. Section 10.10 prescribes facilities should be available for the storage of all materials under appropriate conditions. Example, controlled temperatures and humidity when necessary. Records should be maintained of these conditions if they are critical for the maintenance of the material characteristics. So far we discussed handling of input materials. Now let us see how the final product should be handled. This section deals with appropriate storage. This was discussed in earlier slides for input materials. The same strategy may be applied here too. Records could be data loggers for continuous recording. If the manual recording is done, all the Alcoa principles of data integrity should be maintained. The appropriate storage areas have to be monitored by continuous recording of the conditions. The storage areas information is already provided in slide number 3. Use of digital hygrometers where the day's minimum and maximum temperature and humidity for objective evidence of continuous monitoring is done. For this kind of recording manual data, all manual Alcoa principles should be in place. Section 10.11 prescribes unless there is an alternative system to prevent the unintentional or unauthorized use of quarantined, rejected, returned or recalled materials, separate storage areas should be assigned for their temporary storage until the decision as to their future use has been taken. Same principles as input materials should be maintained here too. You can have an electronic system to monitor such rejected, returned or recalled materials. This system should have a clear traceability of all such materials individually. In absence of any such system, you should have separate areas for storage of such materials. This is a prescription under section 10.11. There should be separate storage areas for rejected, returned or recalled materials. 21 CFR Part 211.80 prescribes that there shall be written procedures describing in sufficient detail the receipt, identification, storage, handling, sampling, testing and approval or rejection of components and drug product containers and closures. Such written procedures shall be followed. Components and drug product containers and closures shall at all times be handled and stored in a manner to prevent contamination. This section of CFR also prescribes same requirement as in ICH Q7. Baggaged or boxed components of drug product containers or closures shall be stored off the floor and suitably spaced to permit cleaning and inspection. Each container or grouping of containers for components or drug product containers or closures shall be identified with a distinctive code for each lot in each shipment received. This code shall be used in recording the disposition of each lot. Each lot shall be appropriately identified as to its status, that is quarantined, approved or rejected. These two sections are also similar to the requirements as in ICH Q7. 21 CFR Part 211.142 prescribes written procedures describing the warehousing of drug products shall be established and followed. They shall include quarantine of drug products before release by the Quality Control Unit, storage of drug products under appropriate conditions of temperature, humidity and light so that the identity, strength, quality and purity of the drug products are not affected. This section has similar information as in section 10 of ICH Q7. I hope that the storage requirements of input materials and the final product are understood well in this video. Review your present system for these features and revise if necessary. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please do subscribe, like and share. Thank you.